Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Doug Block, as Erica said, founder and one of the 4 co-hosts of the D Word. For a visual description, I am a devilishly handsome older white male with grayish hair and a grayish beard and a black t-shirt for contrast, coming from the bedroom of our house with some lovely posters behind me. And if you look really closely, a ceiling fan reflected in one of them for visual impact. So happy to be leading this discussion today. We've had, since the pandemic started and we started doing these weekly Zooms, I mean, so much of the focus of our conversation has been about how to get our films out there, you know, in a world where, you know, festivals are shutting down left and right, are more competitive, where theatrical distribution is more difficult than ever. You know, it's just been a running theme, and you know, we've read so many articles lately that are depressing, and we've had guests here in the past who've been kind of discouraging about the prospects. So it's, I think, particularly great that we are welcoming 2 women here who have done really, you know, just so impressively successful theatrical distribution runs on a micro budget with, you know, just macro effort. And so we've invited them here today. We're thrilled to have them to talk about how the hell they did it. You know, what made them decide to go the kind of do-it-yourself route. Was it a kind of, you know, decision, you know, to make out of, you know, self-empowerment, or was the, you know, circumstances kind of forced on them? And then how did they go about it? So we're happy to welcome today Heather Spore from Make Me Famous and Mye Hoang from DADDIES. And I guess the first question is just simply to, you know, quickly describe your films and you know, how you went about shooting once you got the idea. Heather, do you want to go first, and then Mike?
Sure. My name is Heather Spore. I'm a producer. Make Me Famous. I am a blonde woman with short blonde hair and navy glasses on today, with a navy top, and I'm in front of a neo-expressionist painting behind me. That's my background of one of the artists in my film. Make Me Famous is a downtown romp, kind of a madcap romp through the downtown art scene in New York City in 1980s. We take a look at a very iconic art scene through the lens of one of the striving artists. Instead of taking a look from the top, we take a look from the bottom up and kind of give you a fly on the wall feel of what that scene was all about. And I have a husband who, Brian Vincent, who is my director and fellow producer. And, you know, we were actors. This is our very first film. I was on Broadway with Wicked for over a decade. My husband went to Juilliard, and he kind of got a bee in his bonnet about the downtown art scene. Did a lot of research, eventually wanted to write a play about it. And then we realized it wasn't going to work for a play. And we just thought, well, let's make a documentary. How hard could it be? Well, that we started shooting in 2015, and we just finished post-production right around when the pandemic started. So our process was lonely. It was just him and I. And we called in all of our favors, as I think lots of first-time filmmakers do. And so we had some wonderful shooters, and we hired people to help us, have our vision come to life. And we're kind of doing this DIY distribution because we didn't get picked up. And because we did a lot of work on social media, the pandemic the one good thing it gave me was time, because I am an actress, and all of my work kind of dried up. And so I did the deep dive into figuring out what social media could do for me and growing my audience. And so I took that time during the pandemic, and we really utilized that through the DIY distribution that we're kind of really just starting right now. It's very empowering when you know your audience and you know what they like, and you know that your piece really speaks to them. And that is something that you can learn in early stages of your project through social media.
Yeah, that's great. I look, I love your social media accounts. I went down a very big, dark, deep rabbit hole yesterday looking at your Instagram posts that go back many years, and actually we want to bring one up later. We'll get back to that and go into detail, because we've been meaning to do a whole session on social media, but it was such a big part of your efforts that want to actually take one of your posts and go into depth about what it was that stood out about it, I think. Anyway, thanks. This is quite away from Wicked on Broadway. You were, I understand, working in the fiction film world, or fictitious films, as I call them. What made you decide to make the leap over into the documentary world?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Doug, for having me, and also shout out to Peter McDowell, for filmmaker, for bringing me into the D word a few months ago, actually. Um, I'm a very small Asian woman in her 40s in LA. I'm wearing a pink and white plaid shirt, and I'm sitting in front of a window with some trees in the background. Um, Yeah, my background initially is from film festivals. I was an artistic director. I was an executive director of some Asian film festivals around the country. So I had a decade in that. And then I also worked at a lot of art houses, theaters since I was a teenager. I thought my path was in indie narrative. So I've had many years um, in that scene. Directed my own feature, but I also I directed a feature that was never distributed, but I also produced many features and shorts that were distributed. I actually was going to quit filmmaking, or at least directing. I'm also married to a director, so that can be rather challenging. But this idea of this documentary about men and their cats was nagging at me. It was also trending on social media. It was just something, it was a subject matter that made me really happy. And I thought this would be an easy way to get into documentary filmmaking, just to see if I liked it. Um, that didn't turn out to be the case because the pandemic happened in the middle of our filming. This idea and everything started in 2019. You mentioned Instagram, and I actually thought of the title Cat Daddies, and I grabbed the Instagram handle as soon as I could, even before I started shooting, just because I knew somebody else was going to get it if I don't. So I did that, and then I started fundraising. Production company I work for invested, initially, and we actually got started on filming it, and enough to make a sizzle reel to then fundraise on Kickstarter, to raise what I thought was the rest of what I needed, but I did end up needing more, especially going to distribution. Um, but yeah, it's a very micro budget, no high stakes kind of project. And I always envisioned it as a cinematic experience. So that's why we shot in CinemaScope, 4K, all that, because I wanted to see it on the big screen. It's about bringing the cat loving community together. I had seen other cat content in a theater setting. And of course, as I explained, I'm a cinephile, worked in film festivals, art houses. If anyone had told me the pandemic was coming and that most likely my film would go straight to streaming, I wouldn't have ever made it, quite honestly. The theatrical experience was so important to me. There's something really magical about watching cats with other cat lovers. The audience response is palpable, and that's what I wanted to have.
When did you finish it relative to the pandemic? Did you finish it just before or during?
So I was supposed to finish filming April 2020. And so that changed a lot. It changed my cast, it changed our travel plans. A lot of things I planned was abandoned. It was really heartbreaking time. We also had a cat dad in the film who was dealing with health issues, so it became even more urgent that we finish. But we couldn't finish filming until the end of 2020. Started, I was editing along the way since we had a big stretch of a year to work on it while also filming. So I was able to finish and then start submitting in 2021 to film festivals. So that's what happened.
Heather, what was your timeline in terms of when you finished and when you started to do your distribution?
Well, okay, so as the pandemic was hitting New York, which I always forget when, I feel like it's maybe March 2020, is that about right?
Yeah.
We were finishing up our color correcting at Final Frame, and we were just beginning. We had just one day of sound editing in the the 5-1 room, and then everything shut down. So our color corrector finished. We had just given him final notes, and he, we were going to just do the review at home, the final review. And then we had several back and forth note sessions with the sound editor, which I think also gave us a few more minutes with the sound editor because he had a little more time for us. And then it was crickets. We did start submitting to film festivals around that time, and everything was shutting down. Nobody was having the film festival, so we just kind of kept submitting, thinking, well, we didn't really know how it was going to turn out. And we got our premiere at the New Fest Film Festival in New York City, which, if anyone has LGBTQ content, this is probably one of the best film festival experiences as a filmmaker that I had. They had lots of networking opportunities, and they're still supporting us even to this day. They're just an incredible organization. And so that was our debut.
Did you both feel starting out that you wanted to go the route of go to a really great first festival, have your premiere, and find a distributor that way? Or did you really have your sights set more on, I'm going to do this myself because we can do better with it ourselves?
Well, honestly, as a first-time filmmaker, everyone was telling me, all my established friends in the biz, were saying, if you don't sell it during New Fest, you're never going to sell it. And my personality is kind of like, if you tell me no, I will find a way, which I think makes me a good producer. And so, we didn't sell it, but we got incredible press. We got lots and lots of press that kind of people were taken aback, like, wow, how are you doing this? And we just kind of felt that momentum. And also, I mean, honestly, having the D word as a resource during that time was amazing. If you're interested in self-distribution and you haven't read every single post in the distribution section, then you haven't done your research. Also, there are so many, wonderful podcasts that are out there that I really leaned on to make my decision and really kind of empowered me. Like Nora Poggi has this incredible creative distribution podcast, which made me feel very empowered. And during the pandemic, it was Sarah Moses from Together Films. She was doing all these kind of webinars, which I wonder if those are still available. Kind of like, this is how we're doing it, follow along. And I just felt, and then there's Peter Broderick, who had this incredible, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you took that class during the pandemic, Supercharge Your Distribution. And they give you really great ideas how to think outside the box. And then there's also one that I think has been on the D word recently in the chat, which is Alex Ferrari's podcast about filmmaking and distribution. He goes into a lot of different kinds of filmmaking, but you can pinpoint distribution on his podcasts. But also that Facebook group called Protect Yourselves Against Predatory Distributors. And that kind of came out of a time when Distributor was going bankrupt and people were sharing information, and it now has become this incredible resource. And that too, I would suggest everyone interested in self-distribution, go and read back like as many of those posts as you can handle. Get a bottle of wine because it'll take you a while.
Speaking of which, we're about to do a whole thing about what's going on with Passion River and their sale to another company and the black hole of not paying the filmmakers, and stay tuned for that. I want to speak to both of you about, having made the decision to go the self-distribution route. And forgive me, but did you ever, same question that I asked Heather. Did you hope to get a distributor out of your festival premiere? Where was that? And was there a moment of reckoning where you realized you were not going to make a sale and you'd need to do self-distribution?
So I didn't. So similar to past projects that I've produced on, I did find a distributor through the film festival route, but I did, since no one was interested in doing theatrical, I carved out my theatrical rights. So I've kept that. When I think like my second or third film festival screening, which was at Tallgrass, I was contacted by a sales agent, MPX, and they wanted to rep the film. And eventually they connected me with Brainstorm. So Brainstorm right now has North American rights, except for the theatrical. So I knew that would probably be most likely what would happen. And even if a distributor offered me a few cities of theatrical, I wasn't really interested. And from my past experience, I knew that what that meant was they would four-wall a couple of theaters and then basically charge it back to you in expenses. So it's like I'd be end up paying for it anyway. So I just wanted to keep theatrical for myself, and mainly because I kind of done it before with past projects that I produced. We did the same thing where we did a DIY theatrical, whether it was a small tour of 10 cities or whether it was like 50 cities. So I kind of done it before, and then I have the film festival experience of like getting people excited and getting them into the theater. So that was, but I will say that the whole film festival experience really helped me as a test to see if it would work, because that audience response will tell you everything. And so since people were showing up despite, the pandemic during 2021, and they had to mask up and all that stuff, and just the response, online response, the social media following, all of that informed me that I should try to pull this off.
So let's focus on theatrical distribution. I think many of us know what's involved in doing the film festival circuit, but we'd love to hear, once you decided you were going to do your own theatrical, what were the first steps that you took? Heather, we'll start with you in terms of like a plan, a strategy.
Well, because we had really good luck with press with our topic in New York for our film festival debut, we hired a press agent. I've heard lots of things about press agents, like good and bad, mostly, that they're not getting you what you think you might get from them. But I think that if you become a partner with your publicist and you kind of, develop a relationship that you're not going to take a back seat, you're going to be involved, I think you will get more out of your publicist and your efforts there. And I think we also took that market research that we had from our film festival situation kind of to heart when we were starting the strategy for our distribution. So we had a great publicist. She was taking more of the mainstream publicity. I was doing a lot of the grassroots publicity, looking for bloggers, trying to get people, interested in helping us get the word out. Our film has themes for, art lovers, and also LGBTQ content in the film, because it's about a history in New York that really hit artists quite hard. And so we really tried to divide and conquer, try to get in with community groups. I think mostly, it was very nice. It was good to find people online that could help us get the message out. I'm just going to say this right here and now. Like, if you want to do this for yourself, you have to support other filmmakers doing this. If that means liking, following, and all this, and sharing, because if it's done for you, other people will want to do it as well. And I'm going to take the moment right here to tell everybody to go and follow the YouTube of the D Word, because at a certain point, you can monetize that, and that can help, defer costs for the filmmakers or for the D Word. So those little things like subscribing and whatnot, those are very important to filmmakers. And when you go through this process, you'll see how important things like that and things like tomatoes are for you in your life. But our strategy was really mostly publicity. And then when we actually went and stayed for the whole time during about half of the run, and we did talkbacks, and those always do well. I find that people are more interested in going to those events. So if you can schedule something like that, that is helpful. But that was mainly our strategy there and in London, which we just got back from. And we're just going to continue rolling with that because I feel like it's kind of resonating. And also Facebook ads. We did jump into Facebook ads a little bit in the UK. And I actually had people come and say, I came because of a Facebook ad that I saw with your trailer.
How expensive was that?
We spent $400 on Facebook ads in the
Mhm.
UK. Would we have gotten all of that back? Maybe not necessarily. But it helps with the word of mouth, and we got to extend that run because we were so successful in London. We've sold out our first 2 screenings very quickly, and they just kept adding screenings, and we had a total of 18 screenings at that place, Bertha Doghouse.
Wow. Very impressive. So same question to you about initial strategy once you set out to do a DIY.
Uh, well, like I said, film festivals were a great test. And one of the film festivals, it was at San Francisco Indie Fest. We had a really packed house and a really great screening. And because of that, the Roxy actually reached out to me later and said, hey, whenever you're ready, can we play the film? Can we do a run? And I said, yeah, I don't know when that'll be, but I'll get back to you. So that was a great offer. And so then I knew, okay, well, even if I have a theatrical with 1 screen, I have that screen. So that was great. And then I also knew that the Lemley theaters here in LA are very, very amenable to filmmakers, and I knew that I could get my film on a Lemley screen one way or another. Um, Also, during the film festival run, there were instances where I uh, really wanted to play a city, but wasn't getting into a film festival there, but really needed to play there. So during the film festival run, I rented my own screen. Lemley Theaters was offering, $500 for their largest house at 10:30 in the morning, or 10 a.m. in the morning on Saturday, Sunday. My dock is perfect for a morning, weekend time slot. So I booked it myself. I went ahead and worked with community groups to fill the seats. They sent out emails. We ended up selling out. That was back in 2021. And so uh, seeing that work, I decided, like, okay, I could do this on a larger scale. So, $500 not a big risk. That means I have to sell, like, 30 tickets to break even, and then the rest of it I was going to give to the charity. And so that's kind of partly how it began. And then as the film festival run kept going and people were starting to kind of go back to the theater, I explored the theatrical more, found a booker I'd never worked with before. I was connected from one filmmaker to another filmmaker. That filmmaker ended up being the director of The Automat, which was a runaway success at the box office. And so she recommended her booker. So that's who I hired for my team. I was maybe 3 or 4 months out in planning. I decided in summer 2022. I also had to raise more money, which I borrowed from a friend who took an EP credit. It was just a straight out loan, not so much equity. And then we started, planning it. The only kind of time frame we had to do it was we'd have to do a fall theatrical release, which is a terrible idea, but I didn't really have much of a choice. It was already summer. I wasn't going to wait until 2023. That seemed too long. So that's why we ended up launching theatrical in October, which is the hardest time to launch a little micro budget documentary.
Speaking of budgets, Heather talked about using publicists, as a way of getting word out. Did you have a budget that you were working within, that here's money, or how did you prioritize the money you would spend? Because it sounds almost like you're
Yeah,
improvising as you go along here.
I have all that in my slide presentation actually.
Oh, okay.
So, I have it all like listed out, but basically, I had a bare minimum plan. And this was kind of just came from my own experience and also talking to other filmmakers and seeing how much they spent on certain things.
Why
Uh,
don't we do do you want to do a quick run through of the slides?
sure. Um, Let me get through. So
While you
apologies,
say,
it's a long, or it's, I repurposed a presentation that I did for a film class. So I updated it. Um, and so I have a lot of stuff here.
we'll just do it quickly.
Okay, you guys can see?
Mm-hmm. All
Okay.
good.
Uh, Let me go down to, well, as I mentioned, that San Francisco screening, that film festival, the great thing about that also, as you know, in addition to the theater reaching out saying we want to play your film theatrically because it did so well, um, I was there for the Q&A, and so was a CEO of a company that's cat centric. So that CEO actually reached out to me days later by email and said she loved it so much. And she said, how can we help? And so this was the beginning of launching a sponsor relationship that would later help me with my theatrical distribution. I don't know why it's not. Why my thing is now stuck. Okay. So as I said, I did some of my own screenings during my film festival. I wasn't getting New York. Wasn't getting into any New York film festivals, which was tragic for me because half of my movie was filmed there and a lot of the cat dads in the film are there. So I ended up deciding, taking that heartbreak and making it into an opportunity. And I decided to rent out my kind of dream venue, which was the MoMI, the Museum of the Moving Image, in Queens, and did my own screening. The cost of the venue is so expensive, though, that even if I sold out the 300-seat theater at $15 each, I was not going to break even. So, so while I was planning that, that's when that CEO reached out to me. And so I said, you know what? You could help me with this screening I'm doing. And it's also, I wanted it to be a fundraiser, but I really am not going to turn any profit. So can you help me? And so they ended up underwriting the screening. Um, in addition to that, I did a virtual live stream 1 week later after this in-person screening. I can talk more about that if you have any questions, but it was great because we had the in-person screening. We packed the house and we told people, hey, if you want to, we're doing a virtual live stream screening. If you want to tell your friends, tell them to get a ticket. And that was the year doing a lot of hybrid, and it's like, well, how do you give people the opportunity to see it at home, but then also kind of give them more incentive to be there in person? And so what I decided to do was make the live stream tickets more expensive. And it, it's a donation anyway. So it was $20 versus 15 or whatever to come in person. And people were happy to pay that because it was a fundraiser for a cat rescue that's featured in my film.
How many people came to the live streaming, and also what
Oh,
platform did you use?
yeah, the live stream I use Eventive because I needed to geo block and make it US only, and I believe around 400, like between 3 and 400 did the live stream, and that was a lot of fun, and people could comment live during it. So I was interacting with them live during that, and then it went into a virtual Q&A with me.
And how do you think you got so many to come to the live stream? What do you
Oh,
attribute?
it was word of mouth through this Momi screening, but also I had already built up a social media audience.
Okay.
So they were very excited. So, at that time, maybe I had less than 1,000 followers. Um, so it was very word of mouth. Uh,
You know, what's so interesting about that is, we talk about building up email lists and stuff. And in the old days, it's so that when it played in a certain market or area, those, some of those people would come. But with live streaming and virtual screenings, you can get all of the audience you've built up through social media to come.
yeah.
And
So
hopefully they then spread the word.
yeah. So
Um,
that was very successful. I only did that once though because it was so much work.
yeah.
And I had to basically become tech support. Um, but that was a lot of fun. Uh, Let me see. Okay. So, like I said, based on the festival response, we decided to launch a theatrical. Um, I already said, like, I carved out my theatrical rights. So my sponsor Mailtel boarded as an exclusive sponsor with $75,000 towards the P&A. Sorry, I think I missed somewhere. And the money that I borrowed from a friend became, so basically the budget we had for the theatrical release came to be 110,000, which is way more than the budget of my movie, by the way. But that's usually the case. So again, if I had not had that sponsorship, and I also have to say, preface by saying the reason I had the sponsorship, and I'm not comfortable asking for money at all. I'm not comfortable asking for, fundraising and all these things, but you have to do what you have to do. Um, but because that Momi event was so successful as far as attendance, and I had documented it, I hired photographers, I had, a lot of social media posts come out of it. The sponsor was very happy. The sponsor wasn't there in person, but I was able to show what happened. And so from that, I built, it wasn't my plan to like build a bigger relationship, but that's what ended up happening. So when I knew I needed more money for distribution, I just figured it doesn't hurt to ask and see if they're interested. And they were very much interested. But if they weren't interested, my bare minimum plan would have been around $35,000. I wanted to target at least 30 cities. Uh, and then I list out pretty much what that 35,000 paid for, which was my theatrical booker, my New York publicist. I had a Texas publicist because my hometown is in Texas, and I knew I could get a lot out of Texas. Shipping, I did a new theatrical poster design, which you can see in the picture. That has one of the cast from the film as well. Uh, I also printed expensive posters that were two-sided, so that it looks good in the light box. And also I had to pay for a four wall in New York City. So my booker tried and he pitched it to everyone in New York, but nobody was biting. And also October is just the worst time because that's when some of the Oscar contenders start coming out, and they just kept saying no room, no room, no room. But the East Village, Angelica offered a four wall, um, which ended up being, I can't remember exactly, but it was, I want to say it was around $13,000 for 1 week. So I could have 4 to 5 shows for a week. And that's how we got New York. I did my own social media marketing creation. I did my own community outreach. I know a lot of filmmakers will actually hire someone to do those things, but to save money, I ended up doing all those things. And then my theatrical bookings were a mix of that New York four-wall traditional bookings with box office split, one-offs with box office split, because sometimes the theater will book your movie, but they don't want to give you a full week, but they'll be like, here's a weekend, or hey, let's just do one screening. And then sometimes if I really wanted a city that I just wasn't having luck with, I just rented it and just paid whatever the rental fee was. And that's only if I knew I had partnerships from the community to help me fill the seats.
Since you had a full week in New York, and multiple screenings a day, were you able to get traditional film reviews from the
So great
papers?
question. I did not. I did not get anything really. I paid a lot for a publicist. I didn't get a whole lot. I got a little bit. I got interviews, podcasts, things like that. But New York Times is no longer interested or didn't seem interested. They just kept saying that they didn't have room, they didn't have the bandwidth. I didn't, and as we know, LA Times isn't really reviewing movies anymore, so didn't get that. I was actually quite surprised because even though it was a four-wall, I did have a lot of other cities lined up, so I thought that surely New York Times would want to review it. So I didn't have any of that, and there's just really not many writers out there covering film, and especially not documentary or indie. I don't they definitely give preference over for movies that have like a more traditional distributor. Even if it's a boutique distributor, they still give a lot of preference.
Let's come back to your thing in a little bit, but I want to ask Heather. I mean, this just sounds like so much work. Was this your experience of getting Make Me Famous out there,
Yeah.
doing these kinds of combinations of live and virtual screenings and going city by city?
Well, we didn't do any virtual screenings. Anytime we did a virtual screening, it was through a film festival, and we would try to get them to geo-block, to that area, which wasn't always the case. And as a first-time filmmaker, you just don't know how much do you push back on these things, because you feel at this point you felt lucky to be involved. But I think that you can push back a little bit on what's best for your film. So what the question was again?
Well, I, it wasn't really a question, it was more a comment on the work involved. But let me ask you a similar question in terms of, did you have a budget in mind when you started doing this? You talked about a publicist, or was it kind of more improvising? Well, if we only put $400 into Facebook ads or something, that might be worth it. How did you prioritize what to spend on?
Well, I think that, sometimes you have to invest in certain things that you think that might be in the long run good for the portfolio that you have. And for us, because we really landed in New York with a lot of publicity, we were hoping that we would be able to do that in other cities. And so we just looked at it as an investment. So like kind of it has to happen. And we were giving a cap on how many cities we can do this with. And we're also at the point, so we did it in Toronto and we did it in London. And in fact, our publicist in London was not able to get certain kind of normal, like bigger outlets to review us because we were only in one city. And she said if we had been throughout the entire UK, that we would have, there was interest there, but that That's just not how it rolls in London, in the UK. So I have up next, we have, you know, some screenings that we're trying to, it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle. You get one screening and then you kind of try to, like, what I want to do this time is maximize the effort of the publicity. And so to try to get as many screenings around, and I'm in negotiations with several different theaters, and we're going to try to see if we can't all Jenga this thing together. And then we'll do one more push in New York. And then I guess we'll have to do another push for VOD when we come out, you know, whenever that will be.
Yeah. You know, in the good old days, you're sending 35 millimeter prints around to the theaters, or like digibeta, you know, masters and stuff when it went to video. So having links at least helps that way.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, go into a little bit more detail about your social media. And Julie, are you able to do the screen share with the example of the Instagram, an Instagram post?
While she's doing that, please go and follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It is at Make Me Famous Movie. And if you're in Twitter, please follow me there too. It is at Famous Art Doc. And I will follow you back if you're a documentarian, because I know, I mean, when you get to this point, you realize how important it is to support each other. And I do take notice when other filmmakers support me, and I know they take notice when I support them. So please do that.
And by the way, did you have, oh, here we go. Okay, folks, I just took this out of like, I think there's over 600 Instagram posts you now have up there, and well over 1,000 Twitter posts, but I just took this one randomly by way of example. So Julie, scroll down in the description there, but you know, what's instructive is, to me, you know, you're just pointing out, you're just putting up content that relates to your film. You're thanking your archival research. No, don't scroll down the page. Scroll down on Heather's description within the
I
post
can talk
itself.
about this a little.
Okay.
So for my social media, you know, I just want to encourage you to just do it, first of all, because you know your subject matter better than anyone else, because you've made a documentary about it, or you're making one and you're researching. And so what you have to do is get in front of that whole imposter syndrome. I don't really know. You just, you have to give yourself the credit as being the historian of your subject, and whatever it is. And so you try to give people, you know, kind of interest, like an amuse-bouche, you know, just a taste of something that you might be working on. Or in my case, it's about artists. So I'm very lucky. There's lots of content out there. And, you know, although I have to ask the artists if I can, you know, post their things, I don't usually post something without permission. You know, they like it when I share these things. What I'm doing is lifting them up a little, and it helps me and it helps them. And so if you can kind of try to think about that when you're posting about something, if I post like this archival post that you had up, that was about our archival cinematographer, which, you know, we couldn't have done the film without his wonderful contribution. And so I would in some cases just kind of highlight people that were involved in the film. I find that people really enjoy seeing themselves, you know, back in the day, which is when our film takes place in the 80s. And so I do like to post a lot of things of them kind of, you know, being young at gatherings, and, you know, all the great, you know, 80s archival photography that is available.
What's great is that, you know, we didn't scroll down within the post, but if we did, we would have seen that you, first of all, have a link to where, people can join your email list,
Yeah.
and subscribe. And also you have a million hashtags on your posts.
Yeah.
And by bringing in these artists and stuff, you're really, they will be sharing these posts with their followings as well, and in the same way that when um, you talked about your first film festival supporting you, still supporting you, when you put out a Twitter post, they'll link to it, and they'll or re-link to it. So
For example, when we were in Toronto, I found a blogger. She has, I think, 250,000 followers, a local blogger in Toronto, and I tried to strike up a friendship with her because we have similar interests. She's putting forth content to inspire artists to keep going with their art, and it's a worthy thing. And so when I pitched her, and it takes a while, sometimes people are busy, and especially influencers that have that many followers, they might not get back to you right away. So as Peter Broderick always says, polite persistence, keep trying to reach out, trying to engage with her posts, because I really liked them anyway. And she posted our trailer on her site, and we got 20,000 views. It's over that now, but that's 20,000 people that saw my trailer because of this connection that I made with this person. And she was like, no, this is exactly what I do. I'm trying to encourage others, and it's so on brand with my content. And she gave away 2 tickets. That's all I had to do for that, So there are some, I know that you can pay some people to help you, to post about your thing, but I find it's more beneficial to seek people out that you would be an asset to them. And then it's possible that, you can do a trade with them in some way, or, they'll just promote you.
I wanted to give some time for questions for everybody. So while folks, if you want to ask a question, it's best that you use the raised hand function in here. And while you're doing that, I'll just ask one last question for now, of Heather and Mye, which is, when you do this kind of effort, what were your goals with it? Partly, you talked about, Heather, sort of establishing yourself, I assume, for future projects, and Mye assumed the same thing, but that's such a kind of nebulous, vague notion. How do you measure success? When do you, relative to what you hope the film will accomplish? When do you know you're done, even?
You're done when your VOD release
You're never done.
happens. Just kidding. Yeah, no, that's true. You're never done. I'm still working. For me, it was really selfish motivation. I want to see my movie on the big screen with other people. I wanted other people to have the opportunity for that. Just because of the subject matter of what it is. But I also knew that a theatrical run would benefit the VOD release. In fact, some of the data that I could offer my distributor was helpful, and for them advocating for better editorial placement on these platforms. So, for instance, there's what's called the DMA, which is the kind of like top markets, and I was able to say, like, I played in 18 of the 20 designated market areas is what the DMA is, and you can Google that, and the list is always changing, like the rankings of cities and things like that. So so I was able to say that and give that information to the distributor. So I hope that it makes a difference in the VOD numbers. So
You
we'll
continue to
see.
be in touch with your like mailing list, put out periodic emails, or limit it to a few social media posts and move on.
I'll also say that having a theatrical and also being there in person, I went to as many that I could. I couldn't do all of them. But posting about it, doing photos, sometimes I hired photographers, um, just makes it seem like things are happening. And I had so much engagement during this period. Since last October, I've had so much social media engagement from people because they see something is happening. So that's been very beneficial, I think, to get that community together.
And Heather, same
My
question.
goal is to make my money back. I mean, I started as a first-time filmmaker thinking, oh, this is not going to be that hard. You know, like there are look at all these people on the D word. You know, I know people like these people are obviously making their money back, or else why would they do it again and again and again? And I'm finding that that is maybe not the case, that people make their money back, that there are other, you know, goals that you can have. But personally, I would like to make my money back. And I wanted to see, you know, we did get an offer out of New Fest, and it didn't include theatrical, I'm not sure that the, you know, the specs were good. I wasn't, we didn't want to take it at that time, and I think, you know, I think it's just important to know you can do things yourself. You don't have to wait for people to be the gatekeepers. We got into a great New York Film Festival, but you know, we didn't get into a lot of other film festivals that we wanted to get into, right? We didn't win any awards at any of these festivals, but I think that you can still be successful in something without big A festivals, hundreds of festivals, awards at festivals. Those are different gatekeepers that are exhibitors and that are VOD, that are, you know, they have different goals. So for me, you know, I'm kind of empowered that we're having some momentum. And I also just kind of want to see, like, how does this really work? Because there's got to be a way that people can actually put all this time and effort into something, make some amount of money back so that they can have a living wage, and then continue to be an artist. So that's my goal, is to find out, is that possible? I don't know yet. We'll find out.
To be determined. Okay, let's get to some questions. Todd, you're up first.
Hi, is this working? Hope so.
Yeah.
I'm just started down this journey of film festivals and promotion and all the rest of it. One of the things that's come up right away is wondering if it's practical to do community-based screenings using your own video projection systems and things like that to reduce the cost of the forewalling, that sort of thing. Has anyone got any practical experience, or did you folks have any practical experience using, like, you know, laser video projection for smaller, you know, 50, 100 people screenings kind of thing?
Well, won't you still have to rent a space to have the screening? Or will they be found spaces? You have to kind of decide, like, what is the amount of money that you want to put into this, you know, like, because look at all the hard costs. Like, will you still have to rent a space even though you have the equipment? And also you'll have to figure out, is the quality going to be good enough in that space? Whereas in a theater, they most of the time, at least most of the time, the quality is generally good, and the experience is good, what is intended.
I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat. It would be great if some of you who are asking there can use the raised hand function and come on camera and ask. That would be great. Ty, you're next.
For Heather, we spoke a while ago about you did Facebook marketing, you said. I don't know exactly how much you did, but you were talking about the UK as well. Um, I kind of wonder myself, what is your experience? Did you get numbers with the return, or did you get people saying, I saw this, or I came from an ad? Or, those are it's so weird to think about ads and whether you actually capture people or not.
Well, I may have done the ads, maybe not in the most optimal way, but the way I did them, I kind of geared it towards messaging. And so I actually got a lot of people reaching out so they would see the trailer and maybe they wouldn't read the post as much, I found, on an ad, but they would reach out and say, this sounds cool, or are you playing in the UK? How long are you playing? Where are you playing? And strike up a friendship. And so what I'm finding is you've got to look at social media as a new friend, a new person that you can, that you both have the same interests. If you look at it as you trying to sell something, it's rough. So you have to kind of gear. I know it's kind of a weird thing, but if you look at it toward you're having a conversation with someone, even in your postings, you're having a conversation with your audience, right? Then they'll respond to that in a different way. So I did do the Facebook ads targeted in the UK, and I did messaging instead of awareness. And I do want to let you know, I also took a course. You can take these free courses through Facebook, and it's very long, but they will teach you how to use their ads. And then you will just have to put that into practice.
Great. Mye, did you use any Facebook ads or anything like that?
Yes, a lot. I don't know if you want to go back to my slides, but I have like a lot of stuff about what we did, including the advertising.
Sure.
So,
Can we let's have Shondar's question and then we'll go back to that.
okay.
Thanks very much. This is great hearing your firsthand experience, Heather. And my big question is, we've talked about all these strategies for each of you. What is the one thing that's your 20 to your 80? What is the thing that was most worth your time and return on your valuable investment?
Well, for me, it was the publicist. I found that I got a lot of traction from the publicist, from the publicity in Toronto. We had actually, the publicist didn't get us this, but I got us a feature in the Toronto Star through curating relationships, well before the film got there, and using the relationships that my people around me in the film had. And I saw basically our ticket sales doubled after the Toronto Star, because it was on the front page of the culture section. And we're kind of targeting those, people who watch, PBS and NPR, like kind of an older set, nostalgic for the 80s. And then, so I did see an actual return on investment with that. And then after we actually got on CBC for a little radio spot, kind of towards the second weekend. And that after that doubled ticket sales as well. So I did see in Toronto that the press really brought people in. So
Heather and I chatted about this before this panel, and I actually had the inverse where my return on investment on publicity and press was very small, even though I did morning news interviews on local news. I didn't get, as many reviews from mainstream press as I was expecting, but, I did a lot of podcasts, a lot of articles. And for me, it was social media. It was I did casually poll people when they came to screenings, and it seemed to be 90% social media, whether it was an ad or whether they heard about it from a friend on social media. So for me, I think, I don't really like giving my money to Facebook and all that, but that's, for me, that's what worked.
You know, you
Let's
can
go back.
always pivot. You can start something and pivot. So maybe if you don't want to hire a publicist, you don't have the money, you can try to DIY the publicity, because in smaller markets, I've been able to do that quite successfully at film festivals. And you kind of take those times during your festival run to see what you can accomplish on your own. If you know, if you're tight on cash, you use every single screening, even if it's just a film festival, as market research, so that when you get to the point where you're like, well, maybe I really want to put this out, you might be emboldened to do it because you know, things are going well in the festival circuit. People are coming out. You get to know who's coming out. You're going to be able to target those people better in Facebook ads. And so you have to kind of think of it that way. Like I'm an actor, right? I do a lot of improv before, and that's what actors do. You have to pivot at a moment's notice. So don't spend too long with, you know, don't hire a bunch of publicists if the first one doesn't, you know, if it doesn't work out. You can always go back to that, but you can try to see if there's another avenue for that.
Also, working with the publicists at the festivals, the staff publicists, is really, really helpful. They love producers who will take it on themselves to do publicity, but they'll give you contacts. They'll, you know, do their best to let you know who are the local journalists you might want to contact, especially in off New York venues. So, Mye, do you want to try and get your screen share back up?
Sure. I'll also add that it's not just social media advertising, it's working with groups that have a large following who can also help you, you know, spread the word on social media. But it doesn't have to be advertising, just advertising dollars. So I don't make sure everyone can see my screen, but this is what we did with the additional money from the sponsor. I did everything under the sun, you know, social media ads, but also we did a weekend trip giveaway contest thing. We did opening night parties. We did red carpet. We did OOH stands for out of home. So we did out of home advertising. So you could see in the picture I was on Link NYC in hundreds of units for 1 week. And then we did radio ads with NPR. I did taxi cab toppers. I did you know, the sponsor paid for travel for some of the cat daddies to be at NYC opening so that we could get pictures and just have them be part of it. Social media ads, which I ran myself. I did not hire someone. Postcards, mini posters. We did giveaways. As you can see in the picture, we gave out light up cat ears. They were about a little less than $1 per piece. And a film festival actually did that, and that's where I got the idea. And so we bought that in bulk, and we're handing them out at opening night in several cities. I also hired Bay Area publicists, which did work out really well, and we got a lot of people out to the Roxy because of that. This is the taxi topper. We also paid to have a 1-hour photo shoot with one of the cats from the movie that was in town. So that was just great, like social media content to share. These are the cat bandanas I handed out. I got them in bulk at a really good price thanks to a friend. And then I asked people to, I gave them away at these screenings, and I asked people to share them on their social media and hashtag and like share it with us on social media. And so it was a way to like engage and interact with people. So they were taking pictures of their cats with the bandana that says Daddy loves me. And you know, it's just helpful to constantly have content to share. And so, and it was also fun for me. I just enjoy seeing people's cats. This is like our red carpet that we did in New York. We had some of the cats from the film. I made my own step and repeat with the sponsor's logo, all that. So, and we hired a Getty photographer. We had, so yeah, I had a friend dress up as a mascot and appear at the screenings. Um, this was at the Village East opening night. I got a friend of mine to moderate. We handed out cat ears. Again, like anything to eventize, make it more fun. I knew it was going to be hard to get people back into the theater. So we were just pulling out everything. Oh, I should mention that I'm not really big on opening night parties, but what that did lead to was a friend of a friend who was a producer at Good Morning America happened to be at our party, did not see the movie or anything, but we did get a mention on the Good Morning America website, and that was due to having that party.
It's funny, Peter and Keith Otchwat, when they did the Recharge Your Distribution course, they emphasized that, filmmakers don't tend to look at distribution as creative or fun. And in fact, it really can be. I mean, it's of course hard work. But it's just interesting to think of all the different creative ideas you had for just making the events fun. And
it was so much work, but at the same time, I told myself, even if this doesn't really work, I'm going to have fun doing it. So that's, fun was a big priority. And I only have a few more slides to share, but basically I just wanted to share in the end what happened. And that was that my theatrical run lasted 20 weeks. Because a lot of theaters were shy to book my film. A lot of them turned their noses up at it. It was a slow burn. But we opened in New York with the third highest PTA, which is per theater average in the country. Towards the end of our run, we actually ended up being the second highest PTA in the country after Avatar 2. And, we thought our strategy was to put all our efforts into New York. And if we got a good number out of there, that more theaters would want to book us. And that didn't happen, unfortunately. And I think a lot of it was that people turned their noses up at the film, but also we didn't have a traditional distributor. And so these theaters give all their preference to distributors because I'm just one filmmaker with one film. They're going to give all their screen time to distributor that has, 5 to 10 movies a year. So even though I had these great box office numbers per theater averages, I wasn't getting where I wanted to get. So it was a struggle all the way through. We ended up in the end playing 60 theaters theatrically, and 40, film festivals. So I'm happy with that, but I was very surprised that I had such a good opening weekend in New York, and yet still nobody wanted to play. A lot of theaters didn't want to play the film.
Well, I love that Cat Daddies beat Puss in Boots.
Yeah, that was good timing. In the end, my box office gross is 110,000. It is a coincidence that our total spend was 110. This was not engineered that way. And then a lot of people ask me, well, that sounds like a lot, but then you have to consider my take is only 30 to 40%. And I also did some revenue share with some of the cat rescues. There were a lot of unexpected expenses. So I might break even on theatrical. And I might recoup my production budget from foreign sales. And I might profit from the VOD in the end.
We're getting a lot of background hostility. Is everybody muted other than the speaker?
Yes.
Might be coming from behind you, Mye. I'm not sure. Can you mute yourself for 1 second so we can see?
Let me see.
Yeah. Okay, you can unmute, but or why don't you keep it muted until you talk? I don't know
Okay,
why.
that's weird. I don't know
Yeah,
what that was.
it's gone now. Great. Let's thanks for the screen share. That was great. A couple of people in the chat asked, who did you have on your team to help you? And probably changed as it went along, but what do you recommend as a bare minimum to help get your do-it-yourself distribution launch, which maybe sound weird because do-it-yourself inherently means yourself, but did you have interns, helpers,
I did not. I mean, I had a booker, I had my publicist, well, several publicists, but the main one was handling New York. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
wow. Heather, same for you?
Oh, well, I had my husband. And so it's funny every single day. It's funny. Everybody thinks that you go to this screening event and you're going to just kind of sit there and eat bonbons and, do the talk back. But you're literally working every second you're there. We were flyering on the street. We were getting up in the morning and we do an hour of social media posts while we were there because, you have to strike when the iron's hot. A lot of that stuff you can schedule in advance so that it is automatic. We didn't do that because we just got behind. But so I am really lucky that I have a husband, director. Get all your producers if you have additional producers, I would think that we could probably get together a group of people who are like-minded that want to learn this, that might want to help someone else on their event, knowing that maybe you could get, a kind of share, me do for you, you do for me. So yeah, 2 people. But the thing is, you have to also look who would be a spokesman person for me, who could help me. Is it the people in my who is engaged from my film that is interacting? Can I get those people to engage more? So you can't be afraid to ask people for help. You might realize that all the people in your film, sans a couple, would be willing to share things on their feed. A lot of my artists learned social media because of my film, because they're older and they didn't have an Instagram. And so, but now, you have to kind of teach people. And what I'm finding with this process is you have to ask people for exactly what you want. And that is also something you have to do in social media. You have to ask your followers, you have to give them something, information, a story, a image, something for them that feeds them. That's why they're on social media. And you have to ask for something in return. You have to include that call to action and you say exactly what it is. And don't give too many calls to action. But if you need people to sign up on your mailing list, tell them to sign up on your mailing list. If you need them to buy a ticket for this event, buy a ticket for this event. If you need them to share this, please, everyone share this. And if they're not sharing it, then reach out to them. If you think they might be interested, reach out to them individually and ask them. Peter McDowell, he's good at asking people. He's one of my friends here that we can collab and talk about these things that are happening. You have to ask. So you might be surprised what free labor you can get along the way. And for me, these little bloggers, like it, now that I know that there really is a return on that investment of time to get to know these people in your space, whether it's social justice, there's a space for everything on Instagram. Maybe it's not on Instagram. Maybe it's on TikTok. Maybe it's on Discord. Maybe where you got to find where your people are are going to promote you. And so maybe for you, it's not Instagram, maybe it's, you know, Reddit or something. I don't know, but there's lots of opportunities to get free labor if there's only 1 or 2 of you on the team.
Yeah, echoing Heather, I can definitely say it is about the community, and definitely I put my community to work, and they're so helpful in spreading the word.
And
You
that
know,
includes asking for reviews. And I saw that she did that, and I was like, I'm going to do that too. So, you know, after people saw our film in London, I asked, can you review us on IMDb? Just rate us, just give us a fair review on Rotten Tomatoes, Letterboxd, whatever your thing is. And they actually do it. And it's helpful because that is social collateral that exhibitors can see and say, wow, they're getting a lot of engagement on this, that, or the other. And, you know, that can help your case when you are that one sole filmmaker. You don't have a million films to sell, and it's going to take you another 10 years to make the next one. You know, you just have to create your own little portfolio, and that's just one little part of it. And I did see in the chat, somebody asked, when did you start your social media? You start it as now.
When it's an idea.
And it's an idea. I just got another handle for an idea that we had for a follow-up last night. We just got the handle. Just you get the handle first, and then write your bio, and all that can come later. Do it in stages. Do it as it's available to you. And I say, social media can be fun for you as well. You know, it can be a mood board of what you're thinking about, what you're working on. So do whatever it takes to make it fun for you. Otherwise, it's not fun.
you know, looking at your Instagram posts, it almost looks like its own piece of art when you see all the square images and the colors that you've used. It's actually pretty gorgeous. So, last questions. What you know, what are some of the, I guess, mistakes, lessons learned that you can share? You know, what would you do differently this on the next one?
I would raise money for this distribution part. I would bake that into my budget. I already told my husband, I'm not doing another one if there is no budget for this, because you know, you're still giving of your time without getting paid, especially if you've had to defer your salary, which I think probably most of us do that. You're now deferring your salary again. And all this stuff costs money, and just realizing what the hard costs are. You know, if anybody wants to reach out, I'm happy to like kind of give you an idea if you're new to it, like, you know, as far as film festivals cost, you know, all these other things cost, and then your time. So I would budget. I'm going to budget for this next time, or else
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm up to it to work for free for another 5 years.
Heather, can you put your email in the chat for those? I think there was also a request for your pitch decks, if you have, if you could put a link in there as well. But same question to you. What, you know, mistakes, lessons learned, things you do differently?
2 lessons learned. I think, well, maybe 3, but I would have started earlier. I think that I maybe should have started planning 6 or 7 months in advance instead of 3 to 4. There's just so much to do, and I didn't even end up doing everything that I wanted to do. I would have done maybe less of the out of home advertising. A lot of it we did because the sponsor wanted, and also because we just thought it'd be fun. But maybe I didn't need to do radio ads, and maybe I didn't need to do taxi cab toppers. But it was just fun, and we wanted to do it. I would have maybe put more but I think it's project to project. Honestly, I think I would have put more, maybe less in publicity and more into the targeted advertising, actually. And the main thing lesson that I learned that surprised me was that we were more successful with one-off events than week-long runs. And I think that it's just more exciting when you can fill a 200, 300 seat theater. And then, so I would have planned more just one-off screenings, sell it out, and then, create the demand. And then, many times we got additional screenings because of that sold out screening. So, and there's just more excitement. So I think I would have done more of that.
Yeah. Final, is there any final piece of advice you'd like to give people who are considering doing DIY distribution, or anything else you'd like to say as a final comment?
I just want to reiterate this whole idea, of support us, support others. You also have to support the theaters, because what I'm finding, and only, some of you have been in this business longer than me, I'm finding that they are struggling. They're struggling to get people to buy tickets in the art house cinema kind of sector. These people aren't coming back from COVID quite yet. And so if you have the means, go and buy a ticket, support local filmmakers, support the theaters, and introduce yourself to the people that own the theater, because you might want to be able to call on them. But also on social media, follow other filmmakers, follow along, try to help in any way you can. So it's just, we're a community. I find that documentary filmmakers are more apt to be helpful to other filmmakers. And I think that's a strength that we have together. And so I just say, keep doing that, and don't get kind of caught up in like not knowing how to do something. Just, social media, just think of it, 12-year-olds are using this. So you can do it. There's nothing you can't Google, and just start Googling, start doing it. Give to your audiences, don't sell to them, give them something, and you'll find that you can create a community and create real honest conversations on social media. And I think that's something I didn't realize about social media. I have all the artists from the time, they may be in Berlin or Amsterdam or, New York or LA, but they're all having conversations in the chat on my page. And so that's kind of exciting, because I think that's what social media was supposed to be initially. Now it's this kind of crazy thing where if you don't buy the algorithm, you're not going to get anything, but I think you can break that wall by just building relationships and getting back to people, and supporting them, engaging with them on their feed as well.
Yeah, well, it's been the mission or attitude behind the D word from the beginning, was just, documentary filmmakers would make a great community. And here it is 23 years later, and it's turned out to be exactly that. Mye, and last words from you.
Yeah, everything is changing so rapidly, and like Heather said about these theaters, they're suffering, they're hurting. The ones that would support art house, movies, documentaries. So, and I also would say, oh, here's my cat. I would also say that, a lot of people ask me for recommendations, like who did this for you and who did that for you. And things are changing so fast that, I don't even know if these people will still be doing what they're doing by the time you're ready to, launch your movie theatrically. So it's all hard to say, and it's scary and frustrating out there. I would just warn everybody, but I wish that I had access to the D word before I embarked on this, and I didn't know about it. So
That's your lesson learned. That's your big lesson learned,
yeah,
Mye.
I think you have great materials and tools to research, and also just connecting with other filmmakers.
Yeah, we didn't tell you about the 10% we take of all future revenue. that was in the small print. Well, thank you both for being here. I just keep coming back to a comment both of you made, which is, Heather, you said, when you hear no, you just take that as fuel for the fire. And Mye, you said, talk about turning heartbreak into opportunity. I mean, I think, to me, those are like two of the big takeaways from this is, it's just, I often say, no is just no for now. And so anyway, thank you so much for being here.